Hi sisters, I'm Jessie Rayburn. I'm from the Elkhorn Creek Ward and I have been asked to share some tips on how we navigate distance learning in our home. I'm first going to tell you a little bit about myself and then I will go into the 5 things that have helped us. First off, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I am not an educator. I have not had any training in the education field, but my husband is in the education field. So that does give us a leg up on some of the tips that can be helpful when navigating anything new having to do with the school system. I have 5 kids. The oldest is 16. She is going to be a junior. I have a 14-year-old who is going to be in 8th grade. I have 2 elementary students who are in 1st and 3rd. And then I have a 4-year-old at home who is hoping to head to preschool who will be staying home with mom. As I noted, I do not have any education training. I do have a heaping helping of anxiety that has really made this challenging. And so I hope by sharing these 5 things with you that it may reduce your anxiety as we go into this new year. Number 1, the first thing I would like to say is that distance learning, or NTI 2DL, or whatever they're calling it in your county or school system, is going to be different this fall than it was in the spring. In spring, it was all hands on deck. We don't know what's happening. We don't know how long it's going to be. Everyone was scared. It was almost traumatic. And we just wanted to get the kids home. We just wanted all to be safe, and that's what we did as fast as we could. The teachers and the school systems have been preparing all summer for this. They have been preparing for different contingency plans. They had different things set up. They are ready for this. So it will not be just packets sent home and 5 minutes of this and 5 minutes of that. It's going to be much more structured. It's going to be much more like in the classroom, and they are much more prepared for this than they were facing something that no one had ever faced in our generation. 2, prepare like you would if your kids were going back to school in person. If that means getting a new school outfit, then go ahead and do that. If that means sitting down and having family council with each child, go ahead and do that. Just because they're going to be staying in your home potentially doesn't mean that we can't make it as normal for them as possible. Also, we have the great opportunity right now to prepare them by saying we don't know how long at-home learning is going to be. They may switch to in-person at any time. So it's a good chance to give the kids the heads up that we weren't able to do in the spring because we didn't know ourselves. But prepare, get the school supplies, do the fun stuff. If you need a backpack, go ahead and get a backpack. All those things that they look forward to make this a fun year as well. Number 3, organize and make a plan. We turned our dining room into our schoolroom in the spring. I'll go ahead and put a picture of that up here. It wasn't perfect, but it was the only space that we had that we could dedicate to schooling. They were all there with their pens and pencils. We weren't having to rummage around the house when someone needed color markers for a project. We had their school in the dining room. Now this may look very different for different families. That's what worked for us. I'm a big, giant, huge proponent, whether it's with schooling, with parenting, whatever it is, do what is best for your family. If you have a playroom that you want to turn into that, go for it. If you want everyone to sit on the living room floor and kind of work as a team, then that's what works for you. For us, we had to have a formal room where that's where it happened. Another thing that really helped us was having a schedule. We had a giant whiteboard, we had each child in a list, and each class had a time spot. Now this was something we made up because at the time there was not a lot of structure. It was just packet work, and so we tried to give our kids as much of a normal routine as they could. It will look different this year because we will have timing for classes in most cases, and all of this will depend on classrooms and schools and teachers. But in general, there will be more structure from the actual classroom teachers than we had last year in the spring. Kind of brings me into number 4. If at all possible, have a time and a place where they can just shut off school. Kind of like anyone who has been working from home during this pandemic, it has been very hard to leave work and home separate. Whereas normally you can shut the door, get in your car, drive home. And now we've not been able to do that. Same for the kids. If they are in a spot where they learn and then they play a game, it might be a little less easy for them to step back into the learning phase after they've played there. So if there's a way for you to have one spot that is able to just stay the learning spot, stay the schooling spot, then that way when they're done, they can walk away, they can go play, and that will help them be able to break up their day and be more comfortable with it, because that's what they're used to. They're used to doing all their learning and having that sit still and be good and pay attention, and then they come home and they can be themselves, and they still need that structure, they still need that difference, if at all possible. And number 5, I want to say use the resources that are available to you. This is a very hard one for me sometimes because I want to let people who really need it use all the resources, but they're there for a reason. If your school is offering Chromebooks and you think, well, we already have one and I have 2 kids, they can just share it. Use those resources. Get that other Chromebook. Make it as normal for your kids as possible. Another thing is when a teacher is offering, whether it's help hours or like a study session, whatever it is, have your kids hop on. This is something for the older kids usually. My middle schooler, my high schooler, they work a lot independently. We get on, we check and make sure their things are handed in through Infinite Campus or Canvas, but a lot of the time they're not going in and going on those extra help sessions. If you can, encourage them to use those resources. They are used to being in a classroom where they can raise their hand and ask a question. They may not have as many opportunities to do that. And that is where those come in. Just get the extra instruction that they would normally be getting in the classroom, but is not always available when you're working from home. I really hope that these tips are going to help relieve anxiety, calm some stress, and help you guys really succeed this fall if you are doing distance learning or NTI work.
Hi, I'm going to be sharing some tips with you for you and your kids while you're doing non-traditional instruction or online learning. And my perspective is mostly going to be from a teacher's perspective because my kids are grown and we haven't actually experienced online learning. But I taught at the end of the year last year when we were doing online learning, and I teach kindergarten. So I'm trying to give some tips for the older kids as well. I've asked a lot of teachers for their advice and just from my perspective as well of some things that will hopefully help everyone to make this a little bit easier. So I would say, first of all, a lot of the feedback that I got from teachers and as well as a parent, I know if you have a regular schedule and treat it like a regular school day, so that you get up at the same time, your kids are used to going to bed at the same time, having breakfast before they start, getting dressed, being in the place where they need to be on time. And just like they would, go to school on time, you want them to be at their computer and have everything ready and set before they start the Zoom meetings. That will help a lot. I think one of the other things that the teachers talked about was having a special place that's quiet so that there's not so many interruptions if you can do that. I know many people have more than one child and it's kind of hard to juggle that. But if you can, set them up in a room where there's minimal distractions and where it will be quiet for them. Have their device charged. Try to make sure that their device is charged and their camera's on and in view of them so that we can see their faces and not, all over the place. Try to teach the little kids to look at the camera and to use, if you can, use headphones, because that helps the noise as well. And then if you can practice with them before school starts, have them, set up at the computer and kind of show them how to talk and talk to them about, it's just like you're going to be seeing your teacher, only she's going to be on the camera or on TV, so to speak. But you'll need to be able to talk to her and not playing with things around you, like make sure the little kids are not jumping on the bed or playing with stuffed animals or other toys, or, I think a lot of the teachers are going to have sharing time and do things like that with them, but they mostly want them to have minimal distractions so that they can really learn to the best of our ability. Another thing would be to teach them to raise their hands to speak instead of just talking out, because when you talk, when other people are talking at the same time, that we can't hear them. It blocks out the sound. A lot of teachers are just going to set the mute buttons on and be able to turn the mute button off when they want your child to respond. But if your child needs to say something when it's not, when they are muted, then have them raise their hand or put a note in the chat box. I know if they're too little, they can't do that, but just so that they know that's how they can get our attention so that we can let them speak. Make sure that they're on mute if the teacher has not muted them, unless they need to say something. Because if everyone's not muted, then Zoom doesn't work as well, and we can't hear them. For the younger ones, I know it's tempting. I am a parent, and I know it's really tempting when your child is being helped and they know the answer, or being asked a question, and they know the answer. I know it's tempting to help them. But we ask that you don't do that, because we want to have them learn how to give the answer without your help. And so I know it's really hard, because you think, they just told me this yesterday. I know they know it. But it's best to not interfere when you're a parent behind your little ones trying to help them. Another couple tips that I got for older students was to know due dates and write down when tests or papers are due, have the schedule written down, kind of help them keep due dates, keep track of things, keep things organized. And if you can create movement breaks, I know a lot of the teachers are building this into their plans, that we're going to have movement breaks and try to keep them moving and doing things, but the older ones, I'm not sure about what those teachers are doing, but I do hope that they will create those. If they don't, then when it's possible, let your kids get up and move and take movement breaks. I know it's really hard to set for a very long time through a Zoom meeting, without moving around or doing some kind of movement. And it's good for them. They need that for their brain as well. For older kids, I had another teacher suggest create a Zoom study group with like 4 of their friends. That takes the pressure off you as a parent if you're not sure how to help them with some of the curriculum, and it gives them a chance to talk to some of their friends. So maybe you could ask them, do you have 3 friends that are studying the same thing or in your class that you could create a separate Zoom study group with, and then let them do that to help each other. I thought it was a fun idea. One teacher suggested doing Zoom lunches, or maybe you could set up another Zoom meeting with their friends for social interaction outside of school time, so that they can just enjoy that time and it's not so structured, I guess. Communicate with the teachers. That's another big one. I know we're so willing to talk to parents. We want your feedback and your questions. Do that through email or texting, anything else your teacher sets up for you to communicate with them. And there's a lot of online resources through the districts. If you go online, they have things set up for you to be able to help you with different things. Call the district office if you need to. First address the teacher, though, of course. That's who's going to need to work with you and answer questions first. But there's a lot of online resources. There's things on YouTube. If you have questions about their work that you can't answer or help them with. And I know there's a really good math resource that we used for my kids growing up called Khan Academy. It's Kahn Academy. And he really breaks down math and does a really good job with math tutoring. Another thing I would say is just that we're all a team. Teachers, the reason we teach is because we love the kids, and that's true for every teacher that I know. We want to do what's best for them, and we want to help them. And we know that you do too. So we're all on the same team. We're working for the kids. We're trying to do the best we can for them and to help them learn and grow. So just be patient with us teachers. Most teachers are very new at this too. It's a new learning experience for all of us. But we're working really hard. A lot of us have worked through the summer trying to learn, how to do online teaching. All the teachers I know here are great. They're really experienced and they do an awesome job. So please give us the benefit of a doubt and try to help them while we're trying to help your children. So I hope these tips are helpful. And if you have more questions or things that you need, ask a teacher. Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Lexi Ledwig, and I was just going to share a couple maybe tips and tricks for homeschooling that have worked for our family. And we've been homeschooling for 3 years. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I think the most important or the biggest takeaway information that I have is that don't compare your homeschool journey and your family's journey to anybody else's. When we first started homeschooling, I had a friend who was like a super homeschooler. And so she gave me all of this information and she helped me and she walked me through setting up and kind of using the same programs that she did. And it was a terrible experience. I tried to fit my kids into what worked for her kids. And it was hard for us to kind of get in a groove or find where we fit when we were trying to fit somebody else's mold for what worked for their family. And near the end of the year of homeschooling, we stuck it out and there were a lot of tears and a lot of unhappy kids, but we decided to, I think the Spirit actually prompted me that my kids weren't her kids. And so it was important for us to figure it out, take little bits of information or little tricks and tips and do what worked for our family and met our needs best. And so that is just something I guess I could share is don't compare your journey to anybody else's. I guess the second thing would be don't get discouraged. You're doing great. And some days may be fantastic and they may just fly by and you just want to shout and think that you're Superwoman and you wear a cape and you're doing a great job. Other days you may just want to put a blanket over your head and you feel terrible because you didn't do great that day. So don't get discouraged. Tomorrow's always a new day and they're not all going to be perfect. They're not even going to be close to perfect, but just know that you love your kids and that's why you're doing this, is so that they can learn and have fun. Another tip that has worked for us is we have made sure to keep our kids social and involved in other activities outside of school so that they still have the ability to communicate with others besides just our family. Even with friendships, we help them, each of them get one Saturday a month to invite a friend to do some activity, whether it's going and doing pottery or painting or on a field trip, but they each individually get a day with a friend to kind of help develop and keep that friendship going. So those are just some quick things. Don't compare your journey, don't get discouraged, and keep your kids social. So those are the 3 things that have worked really great for our homeschool journey. So good luck and you'll do great. Bye-bye.
I'm Davis and I am from the Winchester Ward and I'm beginning my 20th year homeschooling. I only have 8 more to go, so I'm celebrating that. Today I've been asked to give some tips and ideas and some resources, so here we go. The first couple of things, these are some of my favorite websites. Teachers Pay Teachers, it's a site that you can go on and you can pay a small fee to get novel units and other teaching lesson plans. Sometimes they have free things. Khan Academy has videos and tutorials, and that is free. And my very, very favorite is Discovery Education. There is a cost to this one, but it is worth it. It's got thousands of science and social studies videos, and they're high quality, and they're for kindergarten all the way up through high school. And then letshomeschoolhighschool.com has a lot of resources for the different types of curriculum for high school students. With COVID, they opened up a lot of virtual field trips like zoos and museums and even Disneyland. So this is a great place to just Google and see what kind of field trips you can add that are virtual and free. And our Facebook group is the LDS Homeschool Families in Bluegrass, Kentucky. And if you have questions or you want to know about certain curriculum or if you have suggestions, everybody is super friendly. We're all here trying to do the best for our kids, and we're all willing to help one another. My tips would be that if you're new or seasoned, to remember to have fun with your education and with your kids, and take time for yourself. Go for a walk each day, read your scriptures, say your prayers so that you're more centered on Christ and you are happier when you're working with your kids. Be flexible and remember that you're going to have your ups and downs, and every day is going to look a little bit different, and that's okay. It looks that way in public school too. To end with, this was the scariest decision I made 20 years ago, and I am so grateful that I decided to homeschool. If people say, don't you have to give up so much to homeschool? Just remember, in reality, you're gaining so much more. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Hey there, I am Melanie Maurer. I am in the Pioneer Ward, and I am so grateful to speak with you for just a few moments about homeschooling, which is dear to my heart. I think sometimes it can be really helpful to understand a little bit about how people came to do this. For me, it was in response to a very strong spiritual impression. It came out of left field. And so amongst the things that I did, I called Tracy Mork, who was one of the few people that I knew in our state that had homeschooled older youth. And if you know Tracy, you love her. And she pointed me in the direction of a really phenomenal resource, which is LDSHE, Latter-day Saint Home Educators Conference, which their annual conference just happened to be coming up in a couple of weeks. So we changed all of our plans. We went. And then at the end of that conference, we made the decision as a family. As an FYI, they have an audio library that has years worth of conferences that is really helpful, or could be really helpful if you are exploring this for the first time. So on my kind of list of tips that I think could be helpful, the first one would be to do what you can together as a family. So can you explore artists or history all together? And also, what makes you excited? Every year we change things up a little bit. This year we've added a Great Lives series to Tuesdays where we delve into incredible stories about people with tremendous character, and we've loved it. The third would be open to impressions. The Holy Ghost will be a powerful ally and a guide and help you customize things to your child. And fourth, everyone is going to approach home education differently. We still do timed standardized tests. We just pay for them. That's not usual, but it's given us a lot of confidence. I can't teach to the test because I literally have no idea what's on them, but it just gives me some reassurance that we're generally covering the things that need to be covered. Also, there's a lot in our faith about education if you're looking for it. So, just a couple of points. Where do we seek knowledge? Out of the best books, Doctrine and Covenants 88:118. And how do we seek learning? By study and also by faith. Let those help guide the framework. Use the best books and incorporate faith into your study. So as we think a little bit about the theme for this conference of Colossians 2:7, now is the perfect time to be more rooted and built up in Him, to be more established in the faith. Homeschooling has actually gotten really cool, and there are so many resources to help. If you're worried about math, don't be. There are great programs to help take you to pre-calculus and beyond. If you're worried about your ability, generally, we don't have the abilities before we begin. They're developed in the doing, but we pray and we submit to the stretching and growing of our capacity. If you're worried about the quality of education, colleges want homeschoolers for a reason. You have more opportunities and flexibility to begin college age work at a younger point than you would otherwise. You can go at your child's pace, which quite frankly, based on our experience, may be twice as fast as the typical group classroom. There are lots of ways to approach home education, but if it's in your personality to be diligent and consistent, I wouldn't have this be a worry. Homeschooling can feel really daunting because it's unlike any endeavor you've ever done. It's a large responsibility and it takes sustained effort, but it has been such a sacred assignment from the Lord. There's a really incredible article that I think can help with just navigating a lot of these areas for the first time, so I'll be sure to link that under the workshop. I'm thinking of you. Please reach out if you have questions.